Welcome. This is the December 4th OpenZFS production user call. We have Andrew, Jan, Stu, Greg, and myself, Michael. And thank you to everyone who's helped with the subtitles on the OpenZFS user and developer summit videos. We're trying to get those as shipshape as we can. Thank you, Andrew. And I just want to throw a feature request out there, which would be something along the lines of a new name property on a Z pool, which is please rename this pool on boot, because that's the only time you can really do your boot pool, because it's the import moment. And I don't know if that should be handled with some acrobatics in, say, the FreeBSD loader and goodies, or simply there's a ZFS boot property that says, hey, on my next import, which might happen to be boot, go ahead and rename that pool, because I find myself doing pool number 3, and it's like, oh, the host name changed. I'm trying to synchronize those, and the host name can be changed in an instant, but the pool name is like stuck. Go ahead, Jan.
Can you rename use Z pool rename or something?
Not on the fly. It's only at import time, and on boot, it's synonymous. And yes, you might have issue on like FS tabs and other, but that's a whole different housekeeping issue, all of which can easily be addressed. But it's that actual import on a boot pool that is a challenge, unless I'm holding it wrong.
So if you use ZFS rename and don't change with -n or -u to not remount, can you then change the name of the root dataset?
Maybe, slightly,
Uh,
maybe, or rename next
ZFS
time.
rename takes let me just check that on a log machine. Maybe it's that easy.
Although the pool name and the implicit data set, while they're synchronized, I'm not sure which tail wags the dog. But that's one to explore, I admit. I just know traditionally you can rename on import, just throw a new name at the end, have a nice day. But on boot, that's not really a time when you can intervene.
Nope, you may really have to go and boot from another root file
Exactly.
system.
That is without question, but it would sure be nice to just throw in a property. It's like, hey, next time I want to be this name. Oh, hello, I'm being imported. Flip and chip, and off we go. Because it's
So
not
the
a
only thing I can think of right now is to
dramatic
create an
operation.
empty device, reroute into that,
Right.
and reroute back afterward. It wouldn't be technically a complete reboot, but yeah.
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
can't use tempfs because during rerouting, the tempfs will be unmounted and then it's gone. So you can't reroute into a
Yeah.
tempfs.
Okay. So I want just that on the public record, if you will. So Jan and Daniel have noticed some interesting behavior on rolling back air quotes empty snapshots that contain mount points. Now, Jan, I'll try a stab at this and see if I now understand what's going on, which is on all of the Unix systems we've used for decades, if a mount point is busy, it says, sorry, busy. Either you're CD'd into it or it's doing stuff. In whatever definition the kernel is giving you, it says, sorry, you can't unmount that. But we're finding that in ZFS, if you have a mount point within another data set and you roll back that data set, vaporizing the mount point, you enter a very strange state in which the data set is mounted according to ZFS, but the POSIX levels of the OS simply don't see it anymore because it had the rug ripped out from under it, to use a non-technical term. Jan,
Um,
does that roughly sound like what's going on?
yes
And I've
and
got
no.
a script here that's kind of simulating
So what
this.
happens is that traditionally on a Unix systems, you cannot make to root at least a mounted file system unreachable. There are a few rules in place which together prevent you from doing that. So you cannot delete a directory if it is a mount point, and you cannot delete a directory until it's empty. Which means because you can't delete any files directories in between because they're not empty, and you can't unmount a file system until it has no child mount points underneath it. So you cannot hide a mounted file system completely from the superuser. But rolling back a mounted file system is a new operation, which is neither the remove directory system call nor the unmount system call, and that gives rise to an interesting new state where you create a ZFS dataset, you snapshot it. For example, you create a new ZFS dataset, you create a snapshot, let's call it at empty on that. Then you create a child dataset underneath it. You do something with that, whatever, and then you roll back the parent dataset to the at empty state. If you do that, the child dataset stays mounted. If you have it as your current working directory for your shell, for example, you can still create files in it, list its content. But the mount point is now gone. You cannot re-enter the file system through an absolute path. You have to unmount the file systems in question and mount them again, and then they appear in the right order. And the content is there. So it's not a permanent data loss, it's just a completely confusing state where you run mount-v, it tells you a mount point, but the mount point, if you do an ls, it will just say nope, no such file or directory.
Oh, so Unix mount-v shows it.
Yes, mount-v shows it, even a normal mount shows it.
Okay.
And yeah, you think it should be there, but there's nothing there because rollback by pass basically is not covered by the normal rules which prevent you from doing that. And you could argue that if we want rollback to work and recreate the state as it was in the snapshot and not the state as it was with the snapshot plus modifications for mount points, which potentially, if it's a read-only file system, you couldn't even do because you could have a parent file system which is read-only and roll it back. And then ZFS would have to not do what it does currently, create directories in a read-only file system, which is also a complete violation of everything you wanted to do. So I think the behavior as it stands is the least bad one.
Well, Jan, should the rollback have failed because it contains or somehow magically knows it contains a mounted file system?
That could be argued, but that's also would break users' workflows, potentially at
Well,
least.
oh, no question, but it would also do it for a reason as opposed to a surprise. And at the moment we have
Yeah,
a
telling
surprise.
users that you have to unmount the following data sets first may be the less surprising behavior, but also it's a bit late to retrofit that.
Right, but here
But
we
I
are.
can
So
just show what I mean.
you want to share?
Yep, in a
Okay,
minute. Give me.
okay. So you get that ready. And this is a question of the group. What would you what would you expect, and should that behavior be more in line with the expected behavior? Because currently a
I
bunch of
mean,
us are bumping into it and scratching our heads.
so I will grab the screen share
Go for
if
it.
you don't
Yep.
mind.
Absolutely.
Is that a reasonable window size?
Beautiful.
Good. So as you can easily see, I have a /mnt file system, and inside of it, I have a /mnt foo, right?
Yes, and the syntax in the doc loosely follow this. I
Mhm.
just did a difference
So I
with
go
doing a
into
recursive
/mnt foo,
snap. Hmm.
I do a ZFS rollback of the parent dataset, and /mnt is empty.
And it's your current directory?
But it's my current directory,
What type
as
PWD
my
does
fancy
it?
prompt shows,
Yeah.
and I
So
can do something like
what does PWD show? The same amount foo? Oh goodness. Yeah, okay. So I didn't even realize you could continue to work in that directory if you happen to be in it prior to its vanishing from
Oh, the file
upper
descriptors are not
levels.
broken. It's just
Wow.
that I can now do something like create a subshell in it, which now says, "Oh, I'm in dot real path dot."
Yep. Oh, okay.
I was about to ask what the implications of that would be.
Amen.
So I can't even go out now because it doesn't know where to go. I can go to
Yeah,
slash
there is no
mnt.
up because it's non-existent.
Yeah,
It's
but you
kind of
can't even
Schrodinger's
go to
data
dot
set.
dot.
Mount. Interesting.
So if I do it like this, find dot, I don't have a dot dot entry in my directory.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun? The directory without a parent directory entry. So someone thought ahead because I didn't get a kernel panic without
That's
when
a
I tried to
plus.
do it.
That's a
Yeah,
plus. So this is within a new shell you spawned?
yeah. The original
Okay.
shell probably has that cached, but
And if you exit the new shell, do you get back to something? Up,
I
darn
did
does.
exit the new
Yeah, there we go.
shell.
I missed it. Okay, cool. Ooh.
PWD real path dot, same error. Uh, yeah, I don't
Hmm.
know how something like pushd is implemented. Let's try it. Nope, it goes by path. It doesn't save the directory file descriptor, so it can't go back. And yeah, now I can, now that I'm out, I can do something like ZFS umount. And it's back. And now I can access the files again. But you have to remount the file systems where those mount points disappeared. Yeah, that's about the strange state I encountered.
Interesting. So, um, thoughts from, say, Andrew, Greg, and Stu, like,
Oh, and what's
don't care, not
interesting
a
is
surprise, but, or,
to
oh,
make it
that
even
can
more
bite me in the
confusing,
behind. Yep.
if you have something which will create a directory, if it's missing, it will create a new directory named slash mnt, in this case foo, and then you won't get the errors. So if I want to make it even more confusing, I could have created slash mnt foo, and that would have been the slash mnt foo on the slash mnt file system, not on the zeroed mnt foo, which no longer has a reachable mount point, even if mount lists one. Um,
Um,
yeah,
so you can recreate what was your mount point and what's the
yeah, but
behavior?
it does not implicitly somehow magically reconnect to the
Yeah.
file system. It's just a directory now, and you can put files in there, and those will be hidden once you mount the uh, file system, which was supposed to be there, back on top. So now you have hidden what is inside that directory if you put anything there, which is what I encountered because I did the equivalent of this just with more data sets involved.
Hmm.
To return, basically, if a package-based installation in its jail fails, go back into a safe state so that I have an empty jail and not a potentially corrupted one where things don't make sense. I have temp files from failed installs in around and so on. So I wanted to go back to the clean state of
Hmm.
only the mount points exist and no non-directory entries under the jailroot. And then I did my installation, but I only did it on the top level file system of the jail. And once I restarted the jail, which meant unmounting and mounting again, or just rebooting the host, also works. suddenly all the mount points are empty except for the topmost one. Well, what the heck? Why can't I enter my jail? Why does it say it doesn't know which UID root has? So JXHack doesn't work because it can't look up the user ID of root from inside because slash etc
Interesting.
is empty.
Yeah.
And I was completely surprised, but then I mounted it slowly by hand, piece by piece, and everything is there. Why? Wait, why is this one data set the size of a whole jail and everything else is 0 bytes? And yeah, it's a really annoying state. And then you have to, if you want to untangle that mess, you have to kind of take the route of untangling that mess by moving the files out of the way so that you don't overmount that directory and then move them across file systems.
And to be clear, this is in no way jail or container specific. We've all
No,
probably
this is
overmounted
ZFS.
what we thought was a backup, and both data sets have mount point equals
No, there
slash and
was no
one over,
backup
right.
here.
Well,
It
no,
was,
I'm saying it happens. Things like this can happen regardless of the use case. So
yeah.
we've all burned our fingers in various ways, and I guess my broader question is there some notion of a safety belt that should happen, such as, oh, you're rolling back and I
Mhm.
hate to say it, rollback fails because you have a valid active mount point that would normally choke on a Unix system and has for decades.
Um,
So go
it's
ahead.
fine to roll back a mounted file system as long as there's nothing mounted inside of
Correct.
it.
Mounted. Yes, exactly.
That's the
That's what I
problem
mean.
there.
It's a submount within the data set
Yeah.
you are rolling back. Uh,
And it doesn't have to be ZFS, which is mounted there. It would be even more insidious if you have something like a tempfs and you don't want to lose its content,
oh,
because
good
then you
point.
have to create a new tempfs mount point and copy the files over.
So
And once you have no file descriptor into the tempfs, its data is unrecoverable without writing a custom kernel module.
okay, now we're on to something. So if you were to have a data set with a mount point that is snapshotted at either both of them or one or completely empty, you put tempfs under it or a different or UFS or some ext4.
UFS would lose its data normally on
Couldn't.
unmounting.
Okay, but tempfs might obliterate its contents with no path to back to them.
Tempfs always, by design,
Yeah.
discards its content on unmount. That's how tempfs
But
works.
it's a rollback and it might be in an ambiguous state. You want to run quick
No, the
tests?
problem is that the rollback in some cases may mean that now the tempfs is no longer reachable.
Yeah.
And because it's not a traditional file system, but the tempfs special case, you can't remount it because on unmounting, it's effectively destroyed. And mounting it again means creating a new file system with the same settings, not
Right.
really mounting the same tempfs.
Correct. Is the rollback technically an unmount because it's not
No, it's
unmounty
not.
enough? Exactly. So would you lose it? Would the TempFS contents become inaccessible or inaccessible and deleted?
They would become inaccessible unless you have a file
Right.
descriptor to
Okay.
inside the tempfs, from which you can then use relative paths if you have the root directory as your shell
Yeah.
directory, for example, you could run tar to save the current directory
Yeah.
and send the tarball somewhere else or directly unpack it into a new mount point or whatever. That would work, or
Okay.
just packs in read write mode.
Right.
But
No. Yep. Yep.
you can't use unmounting and mounting again on the tempfs, which in this case, if you the only yeah you could do is kind of write a custom kernel module which allows you to somehow gain a file descriptor. Which yeah, good luck. You need basically for all intents and purposes uh, for a normal user, if they lose the last file descriptor to inside a tempfs, its content is now gone to them if they've made the mount point unreachable via an absolute path.
And that's kind
So
of the
yeah,
scenario I described in my story time, in which the Proxmox VM that had been air quotes deleted by the user vanished on reboot.
yeah. In this case, if I remember correctly, it was that whatever hypervisor they used had a file descriptor to the deleted raw image of the virtual
Yes.
machine or something like that.
Yep, exactly. So,
And on Linux, the hack in this case is to use procfs
yep, correct.
to find the file descriptor, really do a stat on that thing and try to access it that way.
Yep.
And once you have that, you can, yeah, on
Which
FreeBSD,
on
we
reboot
have
is
a
not a
link
thing.
at
It's
system call which
adios.
could relink a deleted file.
Yep.
So I don't know if Linux has that functionality. Does anyone in this call know?
Sorry, John, can you repeat the question?
Does Linux have a link at system call which allows you to use an empty path so that you can use at empty path as a flag so that you can link a file descriptor which has no remaining name back into the file system it belongs into.
On the left of the
So,
user.
yeah, I'm not positive, but if what you're at, you can create empty symlinks that don't actually point to a file until it
No, no, not a
exists.
symlink, a hard link.
Hard link.
Hmm.
So with link at, you can create
Yeah.
hard links. Otherwise, you would have to use the symlink system call. And the link at call takes a source file descriptor and name. So you don't have to use either an absolute path or the current working directory, but you can specify the path, the directory to which it's relative as a um, as sorry as a file descriptor. And the crazy thing is there's a flag so that you can leave the name empty, and then it means no, I'm not wanting you to modify a file named something something in this directory. I want you to directly work on the file descriptor, and that can be used to relink a file you accidentally deleted as long as there's a file descriptor to it, so that you can do that. And FreeBSD that requires a special same privilege as the FH open system call, which effectively means root, because once a file is gone, things like permissions don't really exist on it, and you could thereby make a file accessible in ways you normally couldn't, because you could hard link it with permissions different from the ones it had. Supposedly that's the reason why it requires priv underscore VHF underscore FH open, which is a bit annoying because otherwise it would be kind of a neat hack for things like a spoolie or something. So that, yeah,
Okay. We're a little in the weeds there, but I totally
sure.
see where these issues exist. And oh, in the course of this, I thought, why don't we have an unmount dash R, umount dash R? Just,
Yeah,
hey, take care of everything under this mount point. That would be totally OS specific, OS problem, blah, blah, blah.
not really.
Anyway,
If because such it would be nice if we had a umount dash R flag for ZFS unmount. We don't right now, so
oh,
you can only ZFS unmount every ZFS file system or single mount points of dataset names. You cannot recursively unmount only a subtree. So adding that to
interesting.
ZFS would be ZFS specific,
Yeah,
but
but
useful. But
absolutely.
if you
Okay,
have
cool.
something which isn't ZFS mounted underneath, for example, slash dev or proc or whatever file system, any kind of pseudo file system you need in a FreeBSD jail, a Linux container, whatever, that would fail because ZFS unmount only unmounts ZFS file systems,
Yep,
as far as
yep.
I know. So you kind of do want support for this in the default umount command. And yeah, maybe someone should submit the patch. to their operating system of choice.
Sure. No, so anyway, it's a bunch of related issues that your average user might not slam into, but when you slam into them, you slam into them pretty hard and get very confused, like overmounted data sets, which, yeah. And I trust you can mount its POSIX such that you could mount, say, UFS or ext4 over what happens to be a data set because
Of
it's
course you
simply a
can.
POSIX mount point. So it's like hallelujah and throw in some tempfs and off we go. Any I'll ask a
I
third
only
time and
mentioned that
final
tempfs
time.
is particularly nasty because tempfs is inferior, so you can't remount it
Correct.
after unmounting because it's effectively destroyed by unmounting.
Correct. So gang, are we
Whereas something like
off
UFS
our
wouldn't be any
rockers?
worse than mounting a UFS anyway, so
Yep.
or Ext or whatever, because you can
You can get
unmount
your
and
data still
mount it.
there on a
It's not even an
persistent device,
unclean
right?
unmount, so it's not like you have to run fcheck on your X2 if you're still using it. I
Sure.
don't know, it's your boot device or boot partition or something,
Sure.
or a FAT file system for your EFI or so. That's not the issue. Here you don't lose any data. The problem is if you put something inside the directory after recreating it accidentally. Now it's hidden when you mount it in the
Yep.
correct order again. But again, it's not permanent data loss. It's just really confusing and ugly and annoying to untangle, but you can untangle it.
Right, but we've all had that panic that when something's overmounted, we think we lost all our
Yeah,
data and
sure.
we start wondering what it would cost to recover. So anyway,
It's
uh,
definitely a case where you may need a new pair of pants, but
right, jeez. So
yeah.
any observations here? Are we crazy? Are there other scenarios where people might hit this? Because we've hit our use cases, but there might be more.
So what
Uh,
I can say is that if you
Stu,
unmount
Andrew,
before rolling back, the
Ray.
issue cannot be triggered.
Right. Which
Um,
that's the workaround or correct behavior, but still, it's a bit unexpected nonetheless.
yeah.
Okay, I think
Can
we've beaten that to death, but
and
I totally want observations and feedback. Was that Stu? Yes.
yeah, so if you're unmounted, can you do a rollback, a
Yes,
snapshot rollback?
you can. You specify the data set name, not the mount point in rollback. Works
But if
like it
you,
should.
but if you're restoring into a symlink, would
Hmm?
that solve the problem?
Restoring into a symlink. If you unmounted, the symlink would either be broken or not there because it's on an unmounted file system.
I would say more creating a symlink in prep for it to
No,
take
symlink
out.
works by
Yeah.
resolving paths.
Yeah, the symlink's is just going to point to
It gets around
wherever
the
the mount would have been, but the mount's just not there now. So
Yeah,
the
it would
symlink
just
just
say
will be
symlink is
broken.
broken. The symlink doesn't save you here.
so again, not that this has ever happened in the past, but you overmount and overmount and overmount. You step through it and say, okay, I take the entire pool out or share out and say, all right, now I recreate my structure of it. Can I replay the data set or replay the snapshot into that symbol?
So
And then
And would a hard
take
link
that.
help for what it's worth?
you can't hard link directories because if you could,
Okay.
you could create cyclical dependencies, which means the file system would need a
Right.
general purpose garbage collector, not reference counting,
But
which
Jan,
is why almost no file system
But it
allows
wouldn't
you to do
really,
that.
what if it's a
but if
file
you're
that you really
restoring,
care about that is in a mount point that is vanishing? Would that somehow survive because I don't know file
You
descriptors?
can't hard link across mount points.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's just
but
how
it,
hard links work.
yeah,
What you may be able to do, depending on levels of insanity, what
Well,
may
okay.
work is to, if you can enter the root directory of the file system because you still have, let's say, a login shell there, you may be able to use dot as the mount point on FreeBSD for a nullfs mount. So that you use a relative path from inside the unreachable file system to as the source argument for the nullfs mount, and then basically nullfs mount the dot on top of that would have to be tested what happens if you do that.
Goodness. Okay,
And
fascinating.
so that you could temp basically and on the next time you unmount that insanity, it don't recreate the nullfs and it should work. I mean, that may confuse some other tools which care about file systems that suddenly now it's the file system type changed from ZFS to
LFS.
nullfs.
Interesting.
On Linux, you may be able to do the same thing with a bind mount. But I don't know if those are turned into absolute paths and thereby fail, or if you can really pass through a relative path and then it works because it stays relative all the way.
Interesting. Well, somewhere
But
this various behavior
right
should
now,
be
the best I can
documented.
offer is don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true of every mistake ever made ever, so yeah. Okay. Let's just feel free to think about that topic for the future of what other scenarios might you hit, such as we mentioned, like, databases with VARDB and version numbers of Postgres and suddenly, a database user might hit this issue. So I'm just trying to document it
Sure.
all there. Okay.
And if you want to make the disaster perfect,
Yeah.
have something like Patronia or some other cluster manager, uh, discover the error, restart the failed node, resync it so that it rebuilds itself. Um, and now you have a complete mess because it thought that, okay, this node was destroyed, let's resync it. And then you commit to it. And suddenly, if you do that on multiple systems, after the next mount, your system may either if it trusts that certain kinds of corruptions are impossible, that you can't really roll back a file system to be for accidentally, then it may just not heal that conflict, or it could fail to start up because you're now lost in one or more nodes and are no longer able to obtain a quorum to recover.
Yep.
So
Yep.
this could cause potentially a really interesting outage, or even worse, if you roll back enough nodes this way accidentally, you may roll back the whole cluster and thereby undo committed writes to the database so that you roll back accidentally the whole cluster if you do it to enough nodes. Yeah,
Okay.
and lose writes effectively. And if that's your only source of truth in the system, you're self-contained, that may work. But now the outside world, it's an open world. It hasn't stopped.
Well, there are some
And
good campfire
currently now
stories
you
there.
have basically forked your
Horror stories.
database and don't have any way to within your data model correct that.
Okay.
That would
Food for
be,
thought.
I think, the perfect storm.
It makes a good campfire horror story. So let's all think about that in the long haul, because there are probably use cases and surprise cases we haven't thought about because we've only done what we've done. Anyway, Greg, you are swapping like mad on a system that I think we agreed before the call recording we should never swap on. Do you want to share your screen or something?
Yeah, 2 secs.
Sure. Of course, be sensitive to what might be sensitive information we shouldn't see, but
Sorry. I do. I just got a reminder that I have to meet somebody in 9 minutes. So
Okay, so if you've got
yep.
the TrueNAS dashboard, that might give us some immediate insights because it is quite nice and visual.
Shared your whole screen, by the way.
Sure. Well, the whole screen's not being shared?
It is being shared.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, cool. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. Maybe make that bigger and let us see. I think the very first dashboard page is pretty good about ARC usage. So, memory, services. What? The majority of your memory is running binaries in theory?
Something
Yeah,
is out of whack.
which is interesting because
Can you run top-o res?
what was
Low
the last one?
res?
Like
Yes.
that?
RES.
RES says in Sam.
Resident
Yes.
RES. There you go. PT read.
I will interject as you have to run that I've seen plenty of daemons go nuts over the years and they're generally fixed with updates. So keeping that machine current can be your friend, but continue.
Yeah,
The
no.
strange thing is that there is no big resident process.
Yeah, it's interesting because
Wait, top, can you open top again?
yep.
Maybe this time not by res but by size. Oh, you can just type O size.
Oh,
It is by size.
No,
347.
it was by resident,
Hmm.
not by size.
yeah.
Anyway,
Swap
you have
90%
94
use.
gigs of inactive, which means, yeah, that's strange.
So I'm not opposed to upgrading it or rebooting it. I seen it a couple days ago, and so I've missed the last few meetings because my series ran out on Outlook, and I kept forgetting to re-add it.
Okay.
So I put it in there for 4 years, so I'm good now.
Jeez, okay, cool.
Yeah. But I thought that somebody might want to see this or whatever because
So-
I've never seen it before,
One
and
of
I'm not running any containers or anything on it. So
And I see your uptime is
There is a find
231
running, or there
days.
was a find running. No, it still is. It's stuck in can you run pgrep dash x f or no, just pgrep find and pipe that into xargs proc start dash c.
Oh my God.
what is it? Proc
And
dash C.
proc dash c and use an n1.
Oh boy.
Proc is a single command. So
Oh.
I will paste the
Yeah.
chat
Yeah,
for
please do.
pgrep find
Great idea.
pipe xargs dash n1 proc start dash c.
Jeez.
Mhm.
That's not the zoom I want. Is it this? There we are.
And Jan notes Stu's question in chat about
Sorry, that's
tickling.
a typo there, but yeah, let me edit the typo out.
Oh boy.
It's an obvious one.
Is this command correct?
No, the pgrep is misspelled,
yeah,
so that was
yeah.
my mistake. Mhm. So there's a
That's been running since yesterday afternoon, but I fired it off after I noticed the swap was full.
okay.
Yeah.
I was suspecting that the find was part of some batch job which may have run amok.
No,
But the other interesting part is that you don't have much activity on your swap.
I did that.
So it's used up, but the system right now, if you run swap info, tells you which ones are the swap devices. And if you now run gstat-pd,
You better type that one out. Was it G?
G-stat.
-p-d,
Yep, that one. Dash P dash D.
and then add a -f eli to filter only the encrypted devices, maybe.
ELI?
Yeah, that's the suffix. Let's hope it doesn't appear any. Very interesting. Why doesn't it show them?
You could also
Can
do
you?
active, although it may say nothing's active.
No, I mean,
Dash A for active for what it's worth. Can be
no,
useful when you have lots of disks like that. Just saying. Anyway,
or maybe, can you please remove the P? Maybe it knows it. So
What's going on there?
gstat-f eli just maybe.
Oh, you
Without
want
the
ELI? Sorry.
Yeah, you have so many disk errors, you're getting swamped.
Yeah.
Let me
So,
type it out.
yep.
Oh yeah, that's the output we want to see. So what it tells us is that the swap devices, which are encrypted mirrors, are totally inactive. So you don't have any swap ins or swap outs. So whatever caused the state it's no longer relevant. And do they have the ZFSmon command installed? It's a third-party port, but it's probably in there because
so which ZFS mon, I believe one
yeah,
word.
ZFS-mon.
You could do a which or just ZFS mon tab. You've got a V in front. ZFS
ZFS Mon? Oh, I see.
mon mon.
No, it's not
Just hit an
installed.
M
Apparently.
tab, but it seems to be gone. Not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
I suspect a reboot would work wonders for it. However, this is fascinating. What just took a big old dump on your RAM and is not letting go?
Jan, do you know if that drop caches works on BSD?
the thing is that it looks like the system mostly recovered, as in it knows that the memory is inactive, so it would give it up when there is a need for it. Is your
Right, but
performance still heavily impacted?
but it might clear the graph. I mean, because depending on
I
what
mean,
that's holding on to from that
yeah, you
API.
could probably reduce some sysctl if you know which part of the system you have to reduce. You with vn-a or something telling you which are the allocations you have to reduce or
Oh,
something.
I just found an AI generated response, which was VM dot dirty underscore ratio. I had not heard of that. Here, I'll put it in chat.
Well, there's not much dirty if you run top.
Huh.
Can you bring up top again for just once is enough? Doesn't have to run continuously. So if you look at the mem, so the laundry list is a bit long, but most of this 94 gigs is just inactive. And the arc is big enough for a backup system for ZFS to not freak out because it has almost 10 gigs of arc cache. So maybe it just thinks that's enough and doesn't fight the kernel for more memory right now because you're not using it. What you could do is you could just try to, I don't know, start 10 parallel tab processes to archive a big mount point to dev null and see if Yark grows. If Yark grows, the system is just in a confusing state, not in a really bad state, and will just recover in time.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine to doing that, but
fascinating.
Yeah, I gotta kind of
Yep.
run.
No worries. Hey, it's a very interesting one. It's absolutely not what I expected when you said, "Oh, I'm going to show you that dashboard." Cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's no longer actively swapping. So try to save the logs to have an idea what could have caused it.
is there something from here, Jan, that you'd like to see?
I don't know what I would
Yeah.
like to see. I mean,
And Jan
there's so
was
much
Yeah.
noise
issued.
from the middleware, which I'm not familiar with the middleware,
Yeah.
Yep.
because I don't want anything getting between me, ZFS, and FreeBSD.
I noticed that since I've been getting that swap issue, it's been having problems sending logs to my syslog server too.
I wonder if syslog went nuts. You might be able to
Yeah,
restart it
but they
as a
use syslog
service.
ng, so maybe
Yeah.
it could be that whatever one of the processes it relies on got killed. You could grab in the log for basically all the processes which got killed or died.
Oof.
Hmm? So
Interesting.
that's
Yeah,
that's
you're
basically,
killing processes.
Yeah. It's getting oomed.
but it's telling something is telling you that you have a connection refused. So you could try to restart the syslog ng service,
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. But
but
I
you
got
said
You've
you
got
had
a
to run.
meeting.
yeah,
Cool.
I got
Thank
people
you.
downstairs at the bar waiting for me for give me free beer, and I
Oh,
can't let them
dude, yeah,
down.
there you go. Precisely. Understood.
All right. Cool. All
Have a
right, you
great
guys
one.
have a good
Worst
day.
Take
problem
care.
to
Yep. Take
have.
care.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Welcome, Dan. Do you have any topics to throw into the mix? We're kind of wrapping up. We looked at a system that's acting weird, and we explored these overmounting issues we've been hinting at, and we now better understand.
I expected to arrive and the meeting would be over. I was so
Oh,
late.
well, we try not to disappoint.
Nothing here, just came to watch.
Cool. So, yeah, that was a fascinating one. I'm working on the doc, but there's not much to say or share. Anything else, gang? I did slip in 2 feature requests that I will throw on my long-running document on such things. Recursive unmount and what was the other? Oh, a zpool rename on boot, which is often when you're importing your pool, so you can't like hop in and do stuff. And I don't think you even could in single user mode because, well, let's see. It's pulling off the file system, so no, I think it's mounting the pool and importing and mounting
So,
the pool to do stuff. So
exactly.
yeah, and that's like bummer.
Unless your root file system is on a different pool or
Correct.
non-ZFS file system, you
Correct.
can't do that. That's why I brought up the crazy idea
MFS. Oh,
of
I know.
creating,
Mhm. Oh,
MD.
MD. So okay.
You
Yeah.
need to create an MD device, uh, put some file system on that. For example, UFS works. Um, yeah, you could do something like use the makefs command.
I get it. I want the
Uh,
lazy fix, not the amazing, brilliant fix. Clever fix.
But yeah, to
Okay.
create the minimal file system, then you could even use mkuzip to make a uzip compressed version of that, and then you could specify that uzip compressed MD device.
Yep. Rephrase something that's
But
universal
remember
to
that it
all
has to be
ZFS platforms would be nice.
a true memory disk. It cannot be a file-backed one. So once you have the file, you would have to take its size, create a
Okay.
big enough MD device, which is malloc backed, and then do it because
Okay.
that persists.
I
And
want
I've done
cross-platform.
similar hacks
Hee.
to reroute between different ZFS file systems in the same
Okay.
pool back when ZFS panicked when you re-imported during the rerouting.
Oh,
So that
goodness.
I had
Okay.
to reroute from ZFS to non-ZFS and back again to do that with paths and other craziness. Can be done, can be automated. Afterward, you can destroy the MD device to get the memory back.
Okay.
on a system of 128 gigs, for example, like the one we just saw, it's not a problem to get a big enough userland in kernel memory, but it's not nice.
Hmm.
And it's not something you will convince people to automate, because that means that the automation would have to be able to create a useful useful root file system. I mean, what you could kind of do is build a very, very minimized one, which uh, isn't even big enough to run a login shell, so not even slash rescue, which would basically use some kind of special little command, which only runs basically zpool reroute, so rename or ZFS rename, and then reroutes again.
Okay.
So like a single executable file system.
Alrighty
With
then.
one or two executables, the ZFS slash zpool commands and your little special purpose PID1.
Got
So
it.
but I don't foresee anyone wanting to write that hack
Okay.
just so that you can easily rename
Got it.
on boot.
Well, final thoughts, questions, t-shirt ideas. We came up with quite a few yesterday.
Um,
Okay.
you could use just
Yes.
slash rescue and write it in shell and accept the overhead.
Hmm. Okay. I,
So
for
if
one,
you
have to
use,
run,
yeah,
like Greg. Final thoughts. Thank you, everyone. I invite you to like and subscribe. Take care.
Bye.
Later.